or 818-865-0605. Welcome back to your What's Cooking program, the nation's food, wine, restaurant, travel, and entertainment show. I'm Michael Horn, along with Paul Stern, Eric Hines, Jack Roberts, Eric Joseph. Glad to have you with us. Where are we headed, Paul?
We're headed to the Russian River Valley, and that's where we're going to find our good friend, winemaker Peter Finucchi. And, of course, this is kind of taking us home, as we mentioned earlier, to one of our first experiences in the Russian River Valley when we attended the Grapes to Glass Festival some years ago.
Welcome, Peter Finucchi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We're honored to have you with us. You're one of our buddies, and it's been much too long since we had you on the show. Where are you located exactly, Peter, so our audience knows? You're in the Russian River, but exactly where? It's above San Francisco off the 101 freeway. Where?
We're just north of Santa Rosa, which is probably the biggest town in Sonoma County. We don't have a tasting room. Basically, the place to find us really is on the web at FinucchiVineyards.com.
FANUCCHI, FinucchiVineyards.com. How did this all start?
Name.
Tell us about this. Started back, what, in 1972? You and your dad? Tell me about this.
My parents were looking for a vineyard, and they found this old Zinfandel vineyard and put a bid on it and got it, and we're off to the races. My father grew up in Lucca, Italy, and knew a little bit about grapes, but actually didn't have a farm. And we kind of started learning from the neighbors and started learning from seminars and stuff, and that was our start.
So you kind of learn from your neighbors, and that's a story that kind of that thread goes throughout Napa and Sonoma areas there of people learning from others, and I'm sure in other wine areas as well. So these vines, these old Zinfandel vines, were already on the property when you guys purchased it?
Yes. The neat thing about our neighborhood is basically there was basically two vineyards over on Wood Road, I think, around 1906. And sometime in the mid-century, in the 50s, they were split up with the children into small blocks, and we purchased a block, one of those blocks, and some of the children that remember the vines when they were young became our first teachers, basically.
So you learned about this, and you had the old vine Zin. And so when was your first vintage? When did you guys start producing wine for the very first time?
Commercially, I started making my wine in actually 1992.
So that was the first time we saw the Finucchi label, right?
Correct.
So you were growers at first, and unfortunately your dad passed away too early here. And did you carry on the tradition then? Is that what happened?
Basically, yes. He died in 1984. And we had just purchased a block next door and planted the Trousseau Gris, and the Zinfandel he was actually going to pull out because back then people were thinking Zinfandel for white Zinfandel, and these vines were at that point over 80 years old, and basically most people considered them just garbage.
But you saved them. Tell us, how did you save these vines? Your dad wanted to rip them out, but you saved them by pruning, didn't you?
Exactly. The vines were actually down by your ankles. People have seen a lot of head-pruned vines. A lot of times you see them up by your knees or something like that. Ours were down by your ankles. And I pruned off the branches and raised them up on stakes, so now they have heads closer to my shoulders.
Wow.
And so they have more sunlight. I still take care of them the old-fashioned way, tilling them back crossways, and they're not irrigated or anything. But they have more sunlight, more air, and basically I still hand prune them myself.
So you get
the vines sort of a different size and kind of unique.
Carpal tunnel syndrome is right there with you and your pruners, I'll tell you, because you go, you got 5 acres there? Is that what it is?
Actually, we've got 20. The Zinfandel is actually about 7 acres.
7 acres.
I actually turned to using a electric rechargeable pruners because, yes, a long time ago I had carpal tunnel in both hands.
Before computers, I might add, everybody. So Peter Finucchi is here, and it's Finucchi Wines, and so you prune these yourself, and then you have what's called field blending. Paul and I were talking about this at the beginning of the show. Tell our audience about what field blending is all about. What does that mean?
Basically, the vines are planted on the Zinfandel block. Basically, the vines are planted with a mix, so it's not 100% Zinfandel. The two big varieties that were interplanted in our block were Petit Syrah and Alicante, and there's a few vines here and there of this or that, even like 20 vines of the Trousseau Gris. But it's about 85 to 90% Zinfandel, basically, in the field. But that's what the traditional winemaking characters, the way they did things in Europe. Basically, when the Italians planted these vines here, they said, well, this is what we do in Tuscany. We're going to do this here. We're going to blend it. Because the Europeans, as you know, they used to call everything just by the region, Chianti or Bordeaux or whatever, and you knew by the region the grapes were just a mix. Here we started calling them by variety, so we got into making them more pure varieties and blending them in the wineries over the last century.
So what varietals would be mixed in with your Zinfandel? Some Cabernet? What other varieties do you have in there?
And, the Zinfandel, of course, and then Petit Syrah.
Got it.
Alicante Bouschet. Those are the three big ones. And like I said, there's like maybe a couple vines of Syrah. And we actually have about one vine of Kerguelen. Different areas, they would have some different varieties depending on what they planted, but that's what we have.
All right, and so when everything is picked, everything gets mixed together then when you go to actually make the wine and crush it. Yeah. All right,
exactly. And a lot of winemakers nowadays will try to plant modern vineyards and ferment them separately. We ferment it together. It's sort of like making a pasta sauce. You wouldn't go and you cook your tomatoes separate from your water or your meat.
Right.
You mix it all together.
Peter Finucchi, hang on here with us, because when we come back straight ahead, we're talking about Trousseau Gris. That's your white wine that you have, and we'll find out about that from Peter Finucchi on What's Cooking.
Hi, I'm Howard Dvorak,